Welcome back, MTG Joe here. We're here for another weekly installment of the best decks in MTG Arena Historic Best of 1. We're looking for the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. We're going to be looking at a whole bunch of different stats from the folks at UntapGG, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates user win rates, gives a whole bunch of cool stats. Link for Untapped is in the video description if you want to track your own win rates and look at some data. And I will paste all these deck lists, timestamp them, so you will be able to copy paste that deck to your heart's content. But just even getting some ideas, seeing where the metagame is. We're going to start off with looking at kind of the metagame distribution, what types of decks are being played, and we will then jump into the deck lists themselves. We have quite a few today that we are going to be covering. So with the ladder reset, it's only been 3 days since the ladder reset, so we're going to look Platinum to Mythic rank for this video. And then as we progress through the month, we'll look at the kind of Mythic only rank towards the end of the month. Notably, there was the Alchemy set that came out about 2 weeks ago. Nothing's really making a huge impact, so you don't really need to worry about those Alchemy recent cards impacting the meta too much. And we'll jump into it. So popularity of the day, we have Mono Green Devotion, most played deck at about 9%. The Shifting Woodlands decks are coming in at about 7. These are kind of a combo reanimator deck. But using a land of all things. We have an uptick in mono red aggro at about 6%, Boros Energy at about 6%, mono green elves 5, maybe like 6%. So usually the things with platinum, you're going to see a lot more like elves, like the kind of dated mono red aggro decks. Like I'm not going to show the mono red aggro deck. It's basically just standard mono red that people are playing in this format for some reason. And then Mardu Sacrifice, that deck's insane. The deck I got top 1200 Mythic with. The Reanimator decks are the Persist Combo decks, and then Wizards at only 4%. So it's interesting to see even after the nerfs, Wizards is not like heavy represented in terms of population of games played. So looking at the decks themselves, we are going to look Diamond to Mythic rank because this will cover a little over, we're doing 27th through to September 3rd, and we have 19,000 games played. We'll jump in. The highest win rate deck is Mardu Sacrifice. This deck is very strong. I went 13-3 to close out top 1200 finish. I think even just like I could pull up mine after this to see, but I climbed from like the percentages up in the last day. What this deck is, it's base red-black sacrifice deck that's splashing white for Ajani, as well as Guide of Souls, gains you some life, but the Ajani's the big thing here. You have Goblin Bombardment that could trigger the Ajani flip, you have Deadly Dispute, you have Village Rights, always kind of work it. Cthulhian Nightmare can kind of let you get reanimation loops going, and plays really nice with things like Marionette Apprentice, Gain and Drain. You got a lot of pinging. You have Amped Raptor in here, claim the firstborn, steal their stuff, sack it. Then you have both these 1-drop creatures that provide you card advantage. So Goblin Trapfinder seeks card with CMC 3 or less, costs 1 less, and then gets haste. You got to sacrifice at the beginning of your end step. Now, notably, the Ajani would, even if you flip it, would have to get sacrificed. Unlucky Witness as a way to get some card advantage too. The biggest thing with the deck, the mana is a little painful, but outside of that, it was a really strong deck. Using like Phyrexian Tower to like loop Marionette Apprentice was really sweet in those games there. Like even just looking, I went, where are we? 13-3. And we went from, I was like 99% and I climbed up to 1151 in the span of like an hour and a half with the deck. And that's like everyone I was playing was like fairly high Mythic. Everybody was trying to qualify at that point. Then moved to Izzet Wizards, 74%. So this list here, usually you'll see like the flex spots. They went back to Shove Aside over the Galvanic Discharge. Since energy got nerfed, this allows you to better interact with the various 1 mana, 3 toughness creatures, 1 Slick Shot, 3 Balmor, 4 Dreadhorde. So interesting mix here. You see the expressive iterations. Seems largely like they moved off the 2 mana Prowess Otter instead. Wizard's Lightning, Flame of Anor, and then you have disruptive elements in Spell Pierce in here as well. Consider for card advantage, and then Reckless Charge to haste out your creatures. Shingan the Companion in this one. Moving on, we go to 5-color Woodlands. So this is a combo deck. It's a very interesting one. So the deck's built around Shifting Woodlands. This is a land that could become a copy of target permanent in your graveyard if you have Delirium for more different card types in your graveyard. So the main kind of combo elements of the deck, Shifting Woodlands become a copy of Omniscience, lets you free cast a bunch of stuff. Or the cooler thing, Shifting Woodlands becomes a copy of God Pharaoh's Gift. God Pharaoh's Gift reanimates Ulamog the Defiler. Because a copy of Ulamog was put into exile, it sees a copy of itself. So the token copy comes in with 10 counters and it has haste, so it has Annihilator 10 for a 14 power attack. So you just like sweep your opponent's board. You can use like Woodlands with like Elishnorn just to wipe your opponent's board. Emrakul in here, take your opponent's turn, or creatures type things. Ulamog, just exile a bunch of cards. Atraxa for value. And then the deck itself is using things like Vampire's Vengeance to be a sweeper that can also create a blood token to let you loot. You can mill over cards with Malavent Rumbling, Cathartic Pyre, Satyr Wayfinder, Faithless Looting. Haywire Might can be used as various types of removal options, but it's an artifact and a creature in one. So this is important for Delirium because you can get fewer cards into your graveyard while increasing the chances of having Delirium. Traverse the Uvenwald. 1 mana to search for a basic, but it's more used for its Delirium mode, where if you have Delirium, you can search for a creature or a land. So it can kind of be used as a setup play, even times where you can like find your, say, creature, and then either cast it with the Omniscience or use the blood token to loot it away, or Cathartic Pyre style effect. We then go to Izzet Belcher. So this deck here is looking to win with the card Goblin Charbelcher. So for 3 mana, you activate it and deal damage equal to the number of cards in your libraries, because you have no lands technically because you're playing all the module dual face cards. This deck can win on turn 3 through a combination of things like Strike It Rich or Skirk Prospector into Ironcrag Feet into Goblin Charbelcher. You have protection with Pact of Negation. You can also use something like an Offer You Can't Refuse to counter your own spell. I actually had an opponent turn to me with the exact sequence of Pact of Negation, whatever spell I did. They Offer You Can't Refused it. They got 2 treasures. They went to their turn, played a second untapped line, cast Ironcrag Feet into the Belcher. So that one kind of got me there. This deck's fairly consistent. You're kind of playing solitaire in a way. This one has very little interaction. Straight combo version, March of Reckless Joy, as a way to kind of dig for your combo pieces. Plunder's Surprise as another way to kind of find your Goblin Charbelcher. This is a deck where in the past we've seen things like Brotherhood's End, we've seen the Indomitable Creativity. This one's just all about the combo. From there, we go to 5-color Reanimator, but it's really the Persist Combo deck. This is a Grixis deck, actually 4-color, 5-color if you squint. But the core of this deck, what you're trying to do is mill yourself over. Faithless Looting, Otherworldly Gaze, Thrilling Discovery, Tigan Scheming, just throw 5 cards into your library kind of effect. What you ideally want to do is put a copy of Emergent Ultimatum into your graveyard or Breach the Multiverse type of effect. Then you're going to reanimate either Conspiracy Unraveler or Scholar of the Lost Trove with Persist or Unburial Rites, and then you kind of just combo off. You could use Mizzix's Mastery on Emergent Ultimatum. You basically just kind of keep chaining together big spells through either these effects, and then you can eventually take an extra turn with a bunch of power on board and just kill your opponent that way there. So for mono green this week, there's a few different kind of tweaks to the list itself, so I thought we'd just go over at a high level. These decks have been around for a while. I just want to pick out some of the differences between the lists. So they're built around Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. This card here, very strong, just generating huge amounts of mana. This version here is very low on lands. I will not recommend this one here. They are only playing 16 plus 2, 18 lands. That's not where we're going to start our day. You should have about 22-ish lands. Like playing the MDFC isn't bad. The Disciple of Freyles, you just 16 lands is too few. So they're using things like Utopia Sprawl, the various elves, Fanatic of Ronis to generate huge amounts of mana. Kiora with the Nykthos taps and untaps gives you a whole bunch of utility there. You have a Karn board package here to get utility artifacts out of your sideboard. This version's on Ugin. You have another version here that's a little bit more stompy oriented with Railway Baller, Vaultborn Tyrant. You have the Great Henge in here. This one's a little bit more out there. This one's probably one of the more cleaner lists. We're also seeing access to Traverse the Valley, a way to so you can forage, which is basically exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sack food. In this case, you don't really have the food, but you can forage it, and then you get to choose seek a non-basic land, and then you get to put it into play. Otherwise, with this deck here, because you're only playing basics, it will always find you your Nykthos. So it's a kind of cool effect that always hits your Nykthos on curve. You have Keen-Eye Curator as a main board graveyard hate in the deck as well, that provides double pip for Devotion, which is nice. So there's like leyline versions, there's no ley lines, there's ones that go into like your Eldrazi package. So it kind of gives you an idea of all the little things people are trying. I actually really like the look of this one. I'm really interested with this Traverse. Just the deck really wants Nykthos, and this allows you to consistently hit Nykthos. We then go to another cool deck. This is Abzan Life Drain. So this is all companies all together. So we have Collected Company, and then we have a new alchemy version of Collected Company. This is 3 Tree Battalions. So you look at the top 6 cards of your library, similar to Collected Company. And if you're like me, you find 6 lands and you put them to the bottom of your library. But if you're a skilled magician, you will find a creature that 3 CMC or less. And then instead of finding 2 creatures, you find 1 with this deck, and you create a duplicate of it, so like an offspring that's a 1/1. So you're able to, with this deck, kind of find extra copies of like Starscape Cleric, any of your life gainers. Notably with this, because these are legendaries, it doesn't circumvent the legendary rule, but you're just gaining and draining life. So Veto drains your opponent, Dina drains, Starscape Cleric does. You have all these life gainers kind of mix with that. You could play something like Ocelote's Pride, which would be another one, while 2 mana still kind of provides that same utility. A really nice creature to copy in terms of the gain and drain ability. We then go to Boros Energy, How the Mighty Have Fallen, to only 69% win rate. So most notable thing here, the Ocelot Pride costs 2 mana. Galvanic Discharge now has been nerfed to only make 2 energy, and Guide of Souls needs 4. This version here is a little bit of like the older package where we're seeing things like Esper Sentinel, Leon and Vanguard, various kind of removal options, Jolted Awake to buy things back, and then just like the Goblin Bombardment plan with it. We then go to Abzan Yawgmoth. So this is a combo deck. So you'll kind of see 2 versions of Yawgmoth, Golgari potentially going around, heavier on like birthing rituals, and then the Abzan version with white for Ropeline Attendant makes it so each creatures in your hand have, when it enters the battlefield, you get to create a 1/1. This kind of self-enables the combo with Young Wolf and Yawgmoth to always have a creature to kind of loop and kill. You could do it with 2 Yawgmoths where you can kind of just put the counters on it to circumvent the Undying trigger. You pair it with something like Marionette Apprentice, you can drain your opponent out. Patra makes a bunch of tokens. Guide of Souls to gain you life, and Keeper gains you life. Knight Aaron of Eos can find you a bunch of cards. The new Alchemy 5-drop as well with Convoke is really strong. It's a Selesnya Rabbit that at your end step you get to seek a creature with CMC equal to or less than the number of tap creatures you have, and you put it into play. So it's just virtual card advantage kind of stapled into that as well. Then we go to Abzan Amalia. So this is while banned in Pioneer, still playable in Historic. So if you have those wild cards, you can play here. So similar to Life Gain Drain deck, you do have like the Starscape Cleric. Can't say that word. Starscape Cleric. But Amalia, Wild Growth Walker, anything that gains you a life, creates an infinite loop until Amalia hits 20 power, sweeps the board for one side. You can do it at kind of instant speed with Quarter Calling. Dewdrop Cure lets you rebuy the creatures from your graveyard. 2 creatures, or if you gift a card, you can bring 3 creatures, 2 CMC or less. So this allows you to kind of, even if they interact with the combo, bring it all back in that regard there. Birds of Paradise for ramp, Guide of Souls for the life gain along the Soul Warden. So Note Scout can either trigger the Explore or just kind of help you find lands kind of mixed into there. Luris Companion. Then we have my deck. I featured this 11 days ago for a YouTube video. So this one here was my variant of an updated Azorius Retrofitter Foundry artifact deck. So we've seen these in the past with Luris, Retrofitter Foundry, Ornithopter. I wanted to try out a Kappa Cannoneer version along with the Thought Monitors for card advantage. So with this deck here, you're playing a bunch of cheap artifacts in addition. So you have the Tormod's Crypt. There's a lot of graveyard focused decks. This incidentally hits those graveyard decks, which is nice. But it also is cheap artifacts to trigger Ingenious Smith, and it can allow you to either cast the Thought Monitors for cheaper or the Cap Cannoneers with Improvise. Kind of get that value. These are unblockable, pretty easy in the deck. This is also a 0 mana artifact that can allow you to have a more consistent Metallic Rebuke card being cast. Esper Sentinel for tax, Fragment, Portable Holes removal, Spell Pierce is a 1-of just for some disruption, and then Imperium Thopterus is just a never-ending value train of Ornithopters. Plays really nice. Your upkeep, you get an Ornithopter, you play it, it makes the Kappa unblockable. Someone made a comment on the video like why we would only play 3 of these instead of 4. This is a card, while very good, it does have some building restrictions in the sense that you need to kind of build it to improvise. So it's not like you're turn 2ing this card every time. In Legacy and stuff like that, there's a lot more cheap, powerful artifacts. There's Mox Opal, there's like just a bunch of different effects. There's Thoughtcast, which is cheaper. Also in this format, there's Divine Purge, which makes playing artifact lines worse. So we're only playing 2 artifact lines. We're not playing like the blue-white ones. So that's something to kind of consider there. You could try the blue-white one if you want over the Darksteel Citadel. It could be a consideration there. They provide similar effects. It might be better just from a mana fixing perspective, but it can throw you off curve. And just kind of looking at the deck, you may want to switch the island to plains. That would be kind of the only tweak. I had the Myrex in here because it makes artifacts, and it's just better in the kind of grindier matchups. And then lastly, someone already made Mythic. They went 29 and 8 with blue-white control. This is 7, 6, 5, 6, 11, ST, whatever. So they went 29 and 8. Azorius Control, and this deck here kind of tuned for best of 1. You'll see some interesting choices, but at the same time kind of playing to the format. They do have a sideboard here if you're interested, but with the deck itself, did they only play? Curious. Yeah, this is all best of 1 play. So with the deck itself, playing things like the fairies, the fairy slows the sunset. No Narset, which is interesting. You have the One Ring, plays really nice with the fairy, tap and tap, bounding, draws you a bunch of cards. Supreme Verdict in here as a sweeper, Divine Purge, temporary lockdown, good against Goblin Bombardment, stuff like that. Oracle of the Alpha, 9 lives just to slow them down, no lock on it. For Storm decks, you have like High Noon, so a bunch of kind of like hate pieces kind of mixed into there, a bunch of different types of removal. Karn can fetch you stuff from the Karn board. When I add this, I'm going to delete out the stuff that's not Karn boardable, just because in best of 1, you're limited to 7 sideboard slots. So we'll kind of go from there. So if you like blue-white control, take a look at this one here, see how it plays out. So in any case, thank you for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there. We'll see you next time.